there's always been a patronage system where elites support artists and make or break them. I think the fact that that plays out again in crypto is interesting because it shows that this technology is not inherently good or bad. It's just a new and powerful tool that can be wielded in a way that empowers and supports artists or in a way that disempowers them.
All right, I am Sam Ewan from CoinDesk. I'm sitting here with Nicholas Bruckman. Nicholas is the director of Minted, which is a documentary really talking about the rise and fall of the NFT industry. I recently watched this. It brought back both pain and joy in doing so. It's on Netflix right now. Anyone can go check it out there. And I'm sure Nicholas can tell us everywhere else they can see it. But Nicholas, first of all, just welcome to CoinDesk. And secondly, I just wanted to ask, what got you interested in this topic? Because it is a bit of an obscure one for the masses.
Yeah, great questions. Thanks for having me. I don't come from a crypto background, although I will say I've been interested in the space as a filmmaker and as a human being. There was several digital artists who I always followed and admired, one of whom was Beeple, Mike Winkleman. And I remember seeing I think it was kind of late 2020, just on his Instagram, these like QR codes. That was probably the first time I heard the term. I really didn't understand it all the time. I mean, I thought the QR codes were just like a digital sale. It was like peak pandemic time for everybody. And I was on Clubhouse with everybody else listening to people talk about their punks and apes in the very early days, early 2021. And right around that time, I got connected to some folks who are in the industry, in the Ethereum community, who signed on and really wanted to tell this story also and became producers and executive producers and really supported in making it, which was very lucky. And really early on, I knew that I wanted to have a very arts focused angle on this. There was already people talking, as they are now, about other utility, whether it's, all of the things that people associate with what NFTs may or may not become. But I really had this kind of narrow lens of look at these artists doing the work, and really early on connected with Justin Aversano, the photographer, Twin Flames, who people in the community know, and hopefully more people will discover through the film. We went to Nigeria to film with Taslamat and Tesseret Yusuf, who were these two twins making these cool pieces that they were selling internationally. And we started with a very small group of artists, really not knowing, honestly, that it was going to be a feature doc or what, because it was also kind of just like up only at the time. It was just, we were there with Justin. He's like, I want to get into a museum. And then like 2 weeks later, he's at Christie's and the Twin Flames were selling for tons of money. So we really just started shooting artists and seeing what they were doing with the space. We were very lucky to be there very early on and to get access to people very early, I think kind of before anybody else got to make a feature doc with him. And I'm very grateful that he let us in. I think he was such an important protagonist for the story because A, he's somebody who benefited from it perhaps more than any other artist in the world. And B, as a person who wanted to make something that would resonate with people outside of the space, including myself, he has a very honest and skeptical, even critical look at the industry from which he benefited greatly. And I think that complexity to his character makes him a great protagonist for the story. And so that was kind of how it all began. There's a lot of right time, right place, and never could have imagined where it would go from there.
I look at the Beeple story that you're telling there, and it reminds me of David Cho's story with Facebook, right? Mm-hmm. Like he happened to get paid in a way that made him at the time the most successful living artist based on the stock that he received from Mark Zuckerberg for painting their office. And Beeple similarly had a small group of people. I think this probably more than many, but a lot of these auctions are driven by 10, 20 people who are really competing with each other in the NFT space. It's not trad art collectors that are coming in for the most part. So, I think that there is something interesting about the fact that while Beeple and David Cho, if we want to use those examples, both were just every day doing the work regardless, and then they kind of get discovered and given opportunity and they have these amazing windfalls. I think there's a complexity that I think what you're mentioning is like, you kind of can't believe this is happening. And then now what, right? And I think we see that with Beeple, with his sale, as you see the price going up and up and up. And, we're like, wait, this is 250,000 and then 3 million and then 50 million and then ends up at 69.
Yeah. And he's just like suburban dad,
right? Literally, yes.
With his kids. And it's awesome. It was awesome to say as a filmmaker to watch this happen to other artists. And we include a lot of people or some journalists kind of hating on Beeple. And I think What's kind of fun too from the art world, Matt Medved of NFT Now, who we interviewed from the film, described Beeple as like the political cartoonist of the internet. He's like the person documenting the culture, and whether you think that's art or not, I think is in the eye of the beholder, but he put in the work. And so it was really delightful for me as a filmmaker, sometimes enviable, I will say, or envious just to watch people get that successful over time. I do think we intuited that there would be some reckoning. And now I don't want to say that I'm not happy that that happened. Fortunately, I think almost every artist in the film ultimately benefited greatly from the space. But I will say it was helpful narratively for there to be an ultimate kind of contraction or reckoning, because it allowed us to see both sides of the coin from the perspective of these artists.
Well, I know, I want to talk about that for a second, because you highlight a number of collectors in the space, and there is a little bit of a financialization angle, right? Whether it's G Money talking about the punk he bought, or some of those collectors who are riding a high wave and then you capture them post. There is something interesting about being inside the bubble, where I think about the art of a lot of street artists or a lot of pop artists, that Warhol has never had a dip in the way that NFTs have had a dip.
Yeah.
He had a much longer arc up, and it took a while to get them. I think I did the analytics once to see, I think it took him 18 years or something before he sold a piece for $1 million in equivalent, which we were seeing.
That's sort of similar to Beeple doing the thing.
Well, exactly. Yes.
I'm not comparing Beeple to Warhol. I'm just, saying that.
But I think you could compare him in the sense that for this generation of young internet raised people, that they may have been following someone. I mean, Jack Butcher is very much like this. He had a big career as a visual graphic artist prior to NFTs, and then NFTs have made him successful in a very different way. But it goes to the fact that artists create, almost regardless of the financialization and the success they want to create, because they're true artists. But what separates the hobbyist often from the artist, you probably make film regardless if you can make enough money making film.
At the end of the kind of credit sequence before the title comes up, the last thing Beeple says is, artists are going to keep making art. And that phrase was almost like a guiding principle for what the film is about. And what I really wanted to emphasize in the story, as a way of inviting people into this story that would otherwise resist it, is to say that this echoes or rhymes with other things that have happened in art history. So we do raise Warhol and other artists in archival and in talk about royalties. And of course, Mitchell Chan gives the allegory of Yves Klein experimenting with tokenizing artwork in the 1950s. For like the normies or the art people who think this is all bullshit, I think that is like really helpful for them to understand that there's some kind of precedent, and that there's always been the financialization of art. There's always been a patronage system where elites support artists and make or break them. I think the fact that that plays out again in crypto is interesting, because it shows that this technology is not inherently good or bad. It's just a new and powerful tool that can be wielded in a way that empowers and supports artists, or in a way that disempowers them, as one of the interviewees says in the film.
Yeah, I think also the element that in the same way when photography first came into museums, the patrons were not happy, right? Or when Bob Dylan plays electric, they're not happy. Change is always a hard thing, but people evolve. You also capture the down curve in the art market. We've still not seen, for the most part, there's a couple of exceptions, right? But we've not seen the sales and the general industry being as high as it was in 2021, 22, when you're probably making the film. So what are your thoughts on also being, again, in a tight time window, being able to cover the downside? And did that give you any insights into this market as well?
Yeah. I mean, it was really a challenging film to make. I mean, maybe all documentary filmmakers say that, but I'll say of my career, this was the hardest because of like the sheer scale and scope of it. We kept trying to rein it back and pare it back and reduce the number of characters, which was really hard. I wish we could have expanded on all of that. But what we did need to do was kind of use the chronology of the market. The film is bracketed exactly 2 years from the date of Beeple's sale, the $69 million NFT in March of 2021. And then it ends 2 years to the date later, which is the date at which Beeple opens his amazing studio in South Carolina. And to me, that felt like a very full arc for a story, because you see the rise and the crash, but you see that Beeple is using these proceeds to build this digital art sort of paradise and haven, and coming from a place where there was no market for this to now it being this like source of culture. I love being there and seeing that, because I think it shows that whatever's happening with the market, this phenomenon, and the people who pushed it forward, like, moved the culture, moved the perception of digital art. You see now, Rafiq Anadol having his blockchain-based NFTs hung at MoMA, which would be unthinkable without this movement. You see all these young collectors like Gino the Ghost and other people who are not folks that you might imagine as art collectors. Like now, I know Gino's a big Jack Butcher collector, and the financialization of art is good for the artist. So I think it's a very nuanced topic. And the last thing I just want to say on this point is that even though I made films of illegal immigration, the American healthcare system, I think this is the most polarizing topic I've ever gotten into. People are extremely passionate about their bags, about their preferred chain, and about how it's portrayed on screen. And I really wanted to do justice to everybody that helped participate in the story, but it wasn't without its share of challenges and conflicts.
I guess my final question for you is, it's now on Netflix, right? Netflix is a very democratized platform around the world, so a lot of people can see this. And I guess I'm wondering, are you hearing from people who are not core crypto, core NFT people, and what are the comments that they have about this film?
Yeah, it's a great question. We really wanted to create this kind of ride where one minute you're like, this thing is going to change the world. And the next moment you're like, wait a minute, human nature is going to always kind of conquer any new tech. But I think a lot of people, like you asked, go into this like, oh, I can't wait to hate watch that NFT thing and watch all these people lose their life savings. It's not that. It's a movie about pioneering artists trying to figure out how to survive and how to shape the way we perceive technology and the way we use it. And so I think the people wanting just the fun are going to be disappointed. Similarly, the people who just want their NFT bags to come back might be disappointed because we do kind of poke fun at folks who are only in it for the money.
Yeah. I mean, I think anyone who is hating on the artists within the NFT movement isn't remembering the people who would look at a Marina Abramovich or like a Vera Molnar or a Marcel Duchamp and say, this isn't art. And yet, look, they're now in canon, right? So there's an opportunity, I think, for people to learn that out of any medium comes these foundational creative thinkers and who break rules. So I think you captured a great number of them. All right, director Nicholas Bruckman. The film is minted. It's on Netflix and other places. Watch it. Anyone in crypto, I think you will find so much to get out of this. It really is a fun watch. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.